You're 17 years old, standing on the docks of Southampton, England, 1912, staring up at the largest ship ever built, the Titanic. Its black hull towers above you like a steel mountain, smoke pouring from giant funnels into the cold morning sky. Rich passengers laugh nearby in expensive coats, while reporters snap photographs like they're witnessing history itself. Maybe they are. Your hands shake, clutching the third-class ticket in your pocket. It cost your family nearly everything. Your mother cried when she handed over the money. "America," she whispered. "A new life. No more factories. No more hunger. No more sleeping 5 people in one freezing room." You believe her. As you step onto the ship, the air smells of coal smoke, salt water, and perfume from first-class passengers drifting past like royalty. Everything feels impossible. Electric lights glowing brighter than daylight, endless polished hallways, grand staircases wrapped in gold and carved wood. You've never seen this much luxury in your life. Then a steward grabs your shoulder. "Third class below deck," he snaps, pointing downward like your cargo. The lower corridors are cramped and noisy, packed with immigrants from Ireland, Sweden, Italy, and places you've never even heard of. Children cry. Steam pipes hiss through the walls. The rooms smell of sweat, damp clothes, and cheap soup. 4 narrow bunks squeezed into tiny cabins barely bigger than closets. But compared to home, it still feels like a palace. That first night, everyone celebrates. Music echoes through the lower decks while passengers dance shoulder to shoulder under dim lights. Someone plays violin, someone else passes around bread and beer. People laugh about America waiting across the ocean like some golden dream just beyond the horizon. For a few hours, nobody feels poor anymore. Then the ship starts moving. A deep vibration rumbles through the floor beneath your boots as the Titanic slowly leaves England behind. Crowds wave from the docks while giant engines roar somewhere below. You rush to the railing beside hundreds of other passengers, watching the shoreline disappear into grey mist. You don't know it yet, but this is the last time many of you will ever see land again. Days pass peacefully at first. The ocean stretches endlessly in every direction, dark blue during the day and pitch black at night. Third-class passengers make the best of things. You eat stew in crowded dining rooms, swap stories about America, and sneak glimpses into first-class hallways where wealthy passengers stroll beneath crystal chandeliers wearing silk and diamonds. The difference between worlds aboard the Titanic is brutal. Above deck, rich men smoke cigars in warm lounges while servants pour champagne into crystal glasses. Below deck, families squeeze together in tiny rooms, listening to engines thunder through the walls all night long. One ship, 2 completely different lives. Still, nobody complains much, because this ship is supposed to be unsinkable. You hear the word everywhere, unsinkable. Crew members say it proudly, newspapers printed it before departure, even passengers joke that God himself couldn't sink the Titanic. Looking at the massive steel walls around you, it's easy to believe them. Then comes the 4th night. The air turns bitterly cold, too cold. When you step onto the outer deck, your breath hangs white in the darkness. The ocean looks strange tonight, flat, still, like black glass stretching forever beneath the stars. A sailor nearby mutters something about ice. Around 11:40 p.m., you feel it. Not a crash, not an explosion, just a strange shudder running through the ship beneath your feet, like dragging your hand across rough stone. Passengers pause briefly, confused. Then everything goes quiet again. People laugh nervously. Probably nothing, someone says. But minutes later, crew members start rushing through corridors with tense faces. Doors slam open. Orders echo through the hallways. You notice something terrifying. The workers aren't joking anymore.
Then you see water. A thin stream at first, sliding across the floor beneath cabin doors. Passengers stare silently as freezing seawater creeps into the corridor. A mother grabs her screaming child. Men begin shouting questions nobody answers. Suddenly, the ship tilts slightly beneath your feet. Panic spreads instantly. You run upstairs with hundreds of others, packed shoulder to shoulder in narrow stairwells, while stewards yell conflicting orders. Some doors are locked, others guarded by crew trying to control the chaos. Third-class passengers shove desperately against metal gates blocking access to upper decks. "Women and children first!" guards scream repeatedly. But fear doesn't care about rules. Then you see water. A thin stream at first, sliding across the floor beneath cabin doors. Passengers stare silently as freezing seawater creeps into the corridor. A mother grabs her screaming child. Men begin shouting questions nobody answers. Suddenly, the ship tilts slightly beneath your feet. Panic spreads instantly. You run upstairs with hundreds of others, packed shoulder to shoulder in narrow stairwells, while stewards yell conflicting orders. Some doors are locked, others guarded by crew trying to control the chaos. Third-class passengers shove desperately against metal gates blocking access to upper decks. "Women and children first!" guards scream repeatedly. But fear doesn't care about rules.
The sailors pull her boat away moments later. He never follows. The front of the Titanic sinks lower every minute now. Passengers slide across icy decks, clutching railings to avoid falling. The lights still glow brightly somehow, making everything feel unreal, like a nightmare pretending to be a luxury cruise. Then the band starts playing. Even surrounded by screaming and chaos, musicians stand calmly near the deck, performing music while the ship dies beneath them. Some passengers cry hearing it, others pray. One man jumps overboard into the darkness below. You look down once. Big mistake. The ocean beneath the ship is blacker than death itself. People trapped in lower decks pound desperately against locked gates. Crew members yell for order nobody can maintain anymore. Steam erupts from vents with deafening screams while the giant ship groans like metal tearing itself apart. And suddenly, everyone understands the truth. There aren't enough lifeboats, not even close. The panic becomes animal. Men fight each other for spots beside lifeboats. Women scream for missing children. A crewman fires warning shots into the crowd after passengers surge forward too fast. Somewhere nearby, someone falls and disappears beneath hundreds of feet, crushing downward in terror. The ship tilts harder. You can barely stand now. Passengers cling to railings while furniture slides across the deck toward the freezing ocean. Smoke pours from funnels overhead. The lights flicker once, twice, then return weakly. You hear a terrible cracking sound. The Titanic is breaking apart. The back of the ship rises higher and higher into the night sky, while people slide, screaming toward the water below. Some jump willingly, others lose their grip. Then the lights go out completely. darkness. Pure, screaming darkness. You hit the water seconds later. The cold is beyond pain. It feels like thousands of knives stabbing into your body at once. Your lungs seize instantly. Around you, hundreds of passengers thrash and scream in the freezing Atlantic, while the Titanic's massive silhouette disappears beneath the surface forever. Then comes the sound survivors never forget. The screaming. Hundreds of voices crying for help across the dark ocean all at once, begging, praying, calling for mothers, husbands, children. It echoes endlessly through the freezing night. One by one, the voices begin disappearing. The cold kills fast. You cling desperately to a floating piece of wood, fingers too numb to feel anymore. Ice forms in your hair. Your chest burns every time you breathe. Nearby, frozen bodies drift silently through the black water beneath the stars. Hours pass. Then, finally, lights appear in the distance. A lifeboat returning. Weak hands pull you aboard, beside a handful of survivors barely clinging to life. Most passengers never get that chance. More than 1,500 people vanish into the Atlantic that night. By sunrise, the ocean is silent. The Titanic is gone. Only lifeboats remain floating across endless freezing water, surrounded by bodies and wreckage. Survivors sit wrapped in blankets, staring blankly at the horizon, too shocked to cry anymore. You survived. But part of you never leaves that ocean. Even years later, you still hear it sometimes, when the world goes quiet. The screaming in the dark.